A new documentary was released and pop singer Britney Spears returns to court regarding her conservatorship. I'm joined by Mark Vincent Kaplan, a family attorney member to Kevin Federline, Spears' ex-husband. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
My pleasure.
So let's go back to 2008 because you were in the thick of it. Britney Spears was placed under the conservatorship, but you were also the attorney in the custody proceedings with the two children. Can you just walk me through that timeline?
Well, at that particular time, as you may recall, there was a lot of turmoil going on, I think, in Britney's life, resulting in an emergency hearing that whereby the court made an order giving Kevin sole legal and sole physical custody, with Britney having monitored visitation. As things progressed and as she progressed over time, that was changed to the point where a judgment was ultimately entered where they have what's called shared physical custody. That's been modified somewhat over time, sometimes because of the necessities of court touring, sometimes because of other issues. But right now, according to the operative legal court order, it's 70-30 timeshare in favor of Kevin. However, they have modified that voluntarily between themselves, where Kevin has somewhat more than that at the present time.
Now, that custody hearing in 2008, do you feel that sparked or impacted the conservatorship that happened in 2008?
Well, I don't know what the nexus was necessarily between that, but it certainly was I guess, a low watermark of where she seemingly was not making good decisions. And I'm sure at that point, again, I don't speak for the conservatorship. I'm not privy to what goes on that side of the case, but I'm sure that was a catalyst in decisions being made that something needs to be done to protect the kids from erratic decisions. And I think that probably was a catalyst in the decisions of others to see what we can do to stabilize the environment that the kids are going to be exercising their custody with their parents in.
Well, we all remember, at least I remember in 2008, the tabloid images of Britney Spears' shaved head. Do you think that the media or the paparazzi misrepresented her in any way that would not be accurate and potentially cause a longer conservatorship?
Well, I mean, I don't know. There was certainly a lot of softballs tossed out for the media for them to have sensationalized coverage. Whether or not they gave her the opportunity to explain, I'm doing this because I want to get away from everything that has burdened me with up till now, as opposed to just somebody would only shave their head if they were untethered from some type of reality. You know, I don't know, but obviously, I mean, you know that that was probably the most heavily followed family law case in history on an international basis. And obviously, they were looking for an angle that was sensational. And the fact that I think Britney gave them a lot of softballs that tied into that particular perspective only heightened the sensationalism and hysteria around that particular time. That fortunately is a time long under the bridge from now.
So let's go back to basics. What does it mean that Britney is now under a conservatorship?
Well, a conservatorship, generally speaking, there's a conservatorship over the estate of the person, which is having others, if not make decisions for the conservatee as it relates to the management of their property and their estate, certainly assisting them in making good decisions. You know, in the conservatorship proceeding today, Britney has an attorney. The conservators have an attorney. There's a probate court that really oversees everything and has to have approval of everything that's going on, of any significant material decisions relating to her estate. Then there's a conservatorship over the person. I think that's where most of the turmoil seems to be coming right now. Her father was the conservator over the estate of the person for a while. I don't know more than what I read in the press, but Britney was not in favor of that. And I think that's where the disconnect is coming from right now, where she wants to do that. You know, I'm aware of the Free Britney movement, but I certainly think that, let's face reality, we're not living in Los Angeles as some kind of fascist gulag where somebody who has a conservatorship needs to write a coded message on the back of a piece of birch bark and throw it over a fence to get the message out. So I do think that's more being read into her being a prisoner of that, if you will. That's the term I've heard used many times, than she otherwise would. She has her own attorney in the probate matter, in the conservatorship matter, and I'm sure that she could express how she felt about it, and I think she is expressing how she feels about it through her lawyer there. Kevin is not involved in the conservatorship. He doesn't know whether there should or shouldn't be a conservatorship, and he doesn't speak or raise an opinion in that regard. The only thing that he's concerned about is whether the existence of the conservatorship enhances the ability for the boys to be in a safe and structured environment when they're with their mom. And we have no reason to believe that that isn't a beneficial factor in that decision.
If the conservatorship were to change, could that affect the legality of custody with the children?
Well, if the conservatorship changed in the sense that it was no longer in place, there would have to be some further scrutiny as to how custody is being exercised, what are the conditions that it's being exercised under. But we don't know about that. We don't have any reason to believe that the conservatorship, although it's been called a temporary conservatorship for almost 10 years, is going not to be in place. But if it wasn't in place, we would probably turn a more cautious eye to make sure that everything is stable and structured over there when the boys go see their mom.
Usually a conservatorship is with a ailing family member, somebody that can't take care of themselves. Do you see this trend increasing among young celebrities?
This is somewhat of a hybrid factual situation, but I don't think it's going to be increasing. I really don't. Look, I am aware of the fact that immediately prior to the conservatorship being placed over Ms. Spears, her finances were in a terrible state of disarray. There are multiple lawsuits around for breaches of contract and things like that. And now, based on what I've seen in the press, her estate's north of $50 to $60 million. So from that standpoint, it seems to me the conservatorship has benefited her financially in that regard. The trade-off as far as how it impacts her personal freedom or creativity, I can't speak to that.
Well, when we look at Britney Spears and we see her having her residency in Vegas and we see her still active in some ways, do you think that it's overblown in what she can and cannot do?
I don't know that her not wanting to perform any further, at least temporarily, is attributable to anything more than exhaustion, which you can imagine. That kind of regimen in Las Vegas is a very taxing regimen to go through. However, I don't know whether she's being forced to do anything against her will, and she certainly had the ability to say, I don't want to renew the Las Vegas show, and she's capable of making that decision. I don't know that that decision is being challenged.
I know that Britney Spears would like to be under a temporary conservator, Jody Montgomery, I guess permanently, correct? Does Kevin Federline have any comment or opinion on Jody Montgomery taking over?
Well, Kevin feels that with what little interaction he has with Jody Montgomery, from where he stands, in his view, she's doing an excellent job. And it's been very easy for him to be able to get things for the boys that were necessary. And he has nothing but praise for Ms. Montgomery's job so far.
Does Kevin feel that Britney Spears, should still stay under a conservatorship?
He has no opinion in that regard. Again, we don't really know what's going on that side. We only know whether custody is being exercised in a responsible and secure fashion, which it is. And he expresses no opinion in that regard, and he has no desire to get involved on that side. There's plenty of people on that side in many different roles that will speak to that, who are qualified to speak to that if in time to come, the time comes for the court to decide whether this temporary conservatorship will become permanent or whether it will be vacated or dissolved.
Do the children have any knowledge of this conservatorship? Do you know how they're impacted in any way?
You know, I really can't speak to that. I really don't want to talk about what's going on in the children's awareness or not. All I can say is the children are doing really well, and Kevin is enjoying watching them grow into the young men.
You've covered this for over a decade. Any last takeaways about this entire process?
I think that there are many different layers of protection for Britney Spears as a conservatee, and I don't think anyone should be worried that in some way it's being abused for persons who have control with a conflict of interest, because the longer the conservatorship extends itself, the more money they can charge and be paid. I don't think that's a valid, it's a concern, but I don't think it's one that's founded in actuality. So the probate court is going to make the decisions that are based on what's best for the conservatee, including whether or not it's necessary, and if so, whether it continues or not. And at that time, whether or not the family law court has any involvement, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.